Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Wellness Warriors podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have a fellow colleague and a friend, Robyn Openshaw, also known as Green Smoothie Girl. Actually, I found out about you, I guess must have been like 2010, 2011, when I was just starting to, share my personal healing story. And I love Green Smoothie Girl. It really was an amazing, you were teaching so many amazing things that not too many people were talking about back then. So thank you for that. So Robyn, I'll tell you a little bit of background from her. She's a former psychotherapist, university professor. She's lectured in over 450 cities in 6 years after she launched her website, greensmoothiegirl.com. And most recently, you've published a book, 2017, you published a book called Vibe. And just the title really caught my attention because I'm all about balancing our energy. That's essential number 3. And Vibe was a #1 bestseller on Amazon and USA Today. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really good book. So let's talk about Vibe and let's talk about energy. Let me ask you, what led you to write a book on vibe and vibrational frequencies?
I probably had written 10 of my 15 books before I tripped on a couple of quotes, one of which is by Einstein and one by Tesla, that everything in life is vibration. And I remember I read that by Einstein and I thought, if everything in life is vibration, why don't I know what that means? Why is that not like part of my everyday vocabulary? And I needed to know more about what that meant. And then I read a quote by Tesla just within the same week. And it was that if you want the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And the same thought hit me, which is, I want the secrets of the universe. If energy, frequency, and vibration are the secrets of the universe, then I want to know what they are. And the deeper I started to research, and I bought a stack of books, everything I could find on vibrational frequency. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized that the world is changing. Modern medicine is changing, all the way from the fact that we can measure vibrational frequency of the brain or the heart. That's what the EEG and the ECG are. We have lasers now. We have lasers to heal. We have lasers to cut out an organ and pull it out in pieces through an incision this big rather than an incision this big, which makes healing much easier. And this is mainstream medicine. I could talk about quantum biology. I could talk about quantum physics. And yet, in my field, where we talk about food and nutrition and therapeutic diets and healing foods, what are they? We're still talking about calories, and we're still counting grams of proteins, fats, and carbs. And it's like the whole quantum revolution just hasn't come to the field of either nutrition, which is what most of my 15 books are about, or the field of psychotherapy. I mean, there are these people over here who do understand energies, and they're having far more success at getting people emotionally and mentally well with things like, we might call them energy psychology, things like body talk, things like EMDR. I mean, hundreds of published studies on how efficacious EMDR is at healing people from trauma. And yet cognitive or behavioral therapy is pretty much, and this is a psychotherapist saying this, okay, this is what I spent 3 years training to do, is pretty much a fail. So getting people to dredge up all their old memories and talk it out with a neutral professional, the whole idea of cognitive therapy has been decades and decades of failure. And so we had to, the book was really about bringing to our own, not just physical health, because, choosing what foods to eat is part of your physical health, but also the way we process emotion, bringing quantum physics into the realm of my 2 favorite subjects, which is what to eat and how to emotionally heal.
Okay. So how would you explain a vibrational frequency to a layperson? Somebody's just interested on, understanding what is frequency, what is vibration. We hear about that, but how would you explain that to somebody?
Yeah, the easiest way to put it is that everything is in motion, and everything oscillates or vibrates, and it vibrates at specific speeds and higher vibrations. We can't live at a frenetic energy at all times, and there are times when theta and delta states of our brain are needed for rest. It's not that high vibrations are what we should live at all times. However, the highest frequency emotions are love, gratitude, peace, joy. I mean, and how do those feel? Do they feel good or bad, Dr. V?
They feel great. They
feel good. The lowest frequency emotions are fear, anger, shame. How do those feel?
Yucky.
They feel yucky. So then that's just to give you an example to make it very concrete, is that everything is in motion. The chair you're sitting on is actually made of vibrating atoms. And it turns out atoms aren't actually very physical at all. They are energetic and they are in motion. And so when you start to understand that everything has a vibrational frequency, including love, including you as you walk into a room with other people, and you're going to attract or repel different people based on that vibrational frequency, it becomes very exciting. And so just don't limit it. There is an energy to everything, and you have more control over your vibrational frequency than you might realize.
All right. So let's ask the next question then. So how do we have control over that? So somebody wakes up and they're in a bad mood and they're just, feeling gray and gloomy, and how do they change? So they're in a low frequency, low vibration. How can they change that?
Yeah, that's a very big question, and there's a lot of directions that I could take that. But since you brought up the idea of feelings, which, I kind of led with that in saying that emotions have frequencies. One exciting thing about emotions that I think would be useful to people to realize is that the average emotion lasts 90 seconds. And so if that's the case, then measure how you're feeling by whether those energies, and that's all a feeling is an energy, is it moving through or is it getting stuck? Because having negative emotions is not the problem. We don't live on the good chip lollipop. Bad things happen to even very good people, all of that. You're going to get in a car accident at some point, and you're going to be really frustrated with one of your children at some point. All those things are going to happen. How fast do those energies flow through you? And so there's a lot of different ideas in the book for helping you get clear on the fact that those emotions should be flowing through, and that you need to identify. Okay, so you're gonna metabolize your emotions just like you metabolize food. If you are finding that the same negative emotions are playing on a replay loop, that's not going to lead to states of emotional or physical health. One thing that's becoming more and more clear, the more data there is about emotional health, is that we cannot have physical health. We cannot have physical health if we have emotional sickness. They don't really correlate.
That's so true.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost rather see someone have a diet of Cheetos and Diet Pepsi if they metabolize emotions and negative events well, and extract what's useful from them, but move forward and put all the bad juju in the rearview mirror. One of the healthiest skills that you can learn in life is to take the juice, put the rest in the rearview mirror. I'd almost rather have somebody eat a crappy diet, but be able to understand and metabolize their emotional energies. And that's not to say that I would really like for people to eat Cheetos and Diet Pepsi. It's just to make the point that it is starting more and more to look like that's even more important to our physical health than what we eat.
Yeah, that's so true, because in our 7 essential system, essential number 4 is healing the emotional wounds. And I tell women all the time, You can do all the supplements, the diet, your coffee enemas, but if you don't have that healing mindset and you're not creating joy and happiness and good things in your life, you're still sending those protein messages to all your cells that are very negative, and your immune system is going to be compromised. You know, psychoneuroimmunology, we know about that. So it's to me, it's 80 to 95% of healing is to really get clear between the two ears, and then your heart as well.
Yeah, and I think that because so much of your audience is comprised of women who've been diagnosed with cancer, and a subject very dear to my heart. A lot of family members who have been through that. I think that it's natural in the beginning when all of a sudden you just immerse yourself in learning, and you're going through Dr. V's system. You're learning everything you can about diet. You're trying to flood your body with nutrition. It's a little bit normal and natural to get a little bit obsessive, but check yourself on whether that that phase lasts a little longer than it needs to before you get back into actively cultivating joy, peace, self-care, letting all the what ifs and flow through. Because of course there's fear. Of course, that whole journey starts with fear, and the fear can be good because it motivates us to make some significant lifestyle changes that needed to happen anyway. But low vibration human beings are far more likely to develop cancerous growths that actually form a vascular system and compromise our health. We all have cancer. Everybody has cancer, and we don't entirely know all the answers to why do some people end up with active cancer at a fairly young age, like detectable cancer that's compromising entire bodily systems. However, Bruce Tainio, who developed the BT3 monitoring system, he actually measured cancer patients and healthy people and people with a lot of other disease states, and he found that even though an average healthy person is 62 to 68 hertz, write that down, 62 to 68 hertz if you're a note-taking type, cancer patients were sometimes as low as 25 hertz.
Yeah. So what is this BT3 monitoring system? How do you get tested on that?
Unfortunately, Bruce Tainio is no longer with us, who's out of the University of Washington, and it is a patented device. I'm not sure if anyone has it. There are other devices. There's some very expensive Russian technology. There's biophotonic emissions testing where you're refracting light and you're measuring vibrational frequency that way. There's a number of different ways to measure vibrational frequencies, and that's a deeper science than probably our conversation wants to go to. But what's interesting is that as the frequency of the overall organism decreases, we become more likely to we become more acidic, we become more oxygen deprived, and so those same states of being give rise to disease. And we become more vulnerable to disease when we live at those lower vibrations. So we really want to learn how to eat more of the high vibration foods. We also want to learn to metabolize those negative emotions like we're talking about. Shame does not serve in healing from cancer. Self-blame, hostility towards others, holding on to anger, lack of forgiveness is as low vibration as it gets. That and shame are the two lowest, and fear are the lowest emotional states.
So what are some of the foods that would be highest in vibration for people to indulge in?
This was a surprise to me because I expected that greens and superfoods, like turmeric and ginger and garlic, and the ones that we know are also very nutrient dense and have different compounds that, for instance, starve cancer cells or actually have some kill function on cancer cells. But the highest vibration class of foods is fruit.
Interesting.
Yeah. Those superfoods are very high, and greens are very high. So 62 to 68 hertz being a healthy human being. There's a law, several different laws of quantum physics that we explore in the book. And one of them is, one of my very favorite ones to talk about, is that a substance of a higher frequency can cause a substance of a lower frequency to increase. So what that means is that if you are a person, Dr. V, who lives in primarily most of the time in love and gratitude and forgiveness and letting everybody just be them and not being highly critical or attached to your judgments and your dogmas, if you're that kind of a person and you're a higher vibration person than me, then when I am in your energy field, and P.S., I am in your energy field right now, even though it's digitally transmitted, that makes us have that much more capacity to be able to be in each other's energy field. Doesn't have to be physical. We don't have to be within 8 feet of each other. Being around someone who is of higher vibration raises ours. And we know this because we meet someone at a party and we barely met them and we're like trying to get their number. We're trying to figure out how we could spend more time with them. Or the opposite of that, we might meet somebody, maybe it's a waitress at a restaurant that we go to, and we just can't get away from them fast enough. Like, just whatever interaction we have with them, that's all we want. We don't want any more. These are energetic matches or dissonances. But eating foods, by that principle, a substance of a higher frequency can cause a substance of a lower frequency to increase. Think of yourself as the substance of a lower frequency. You're going to want to eat, by that logic, right, foods of higher frequencies. And greens are over 70 hertz. So if we, as healthy human beings, are 62 to 68 hertz of energy, and we drink a green juice, here's mine. It's empty now, but I drink. This is celery juice that I get from a place that makes it for me, just fresh that day. And we drink a green juice that's 75 or 80 hertz. Then what is happening to all the cells of our body being nourished by that particular food?
Raising that frequency, absolutely.
Right.
Awesome.
So fruits. I'm not talking about pasteurized orange juice. I'm talking about fresh fruit, greens, vegetables, superfoods. These are your highest classes of high frequency foods. A hot dog, bacon,
Dead.
2 hertz.
Yeah. Dead. Yeah. So are there various modalities that would help people's frequencies come up? Like, I'm thinking in terms of, what about a PEMF mat? Does that help bring up frequencies, physical frequencies?
Yeah, I haven't seen data on the PMF mats, but that's part of what is happening there is raising the frequency, because cancer isn't going to do well in a high frequency environment. A cancerous tumor, for instance, is very, very low vibration living thing.
Right.
So I would imagine so. It makes sense. That's a lot of what those devices are designed to do. But people who employ tapping, people who are highly conscious individuals, and they quickly recognize when they're in an emotional state, like a fear state or a anger state, and they have ways of asking themselves a few questions. A question I constantly ask myself is this, when I start to feel anger, I'm critical of myself or others, or I'm fearful, I ask myself about the thing that I'm stressing out about or mad about, is this going to matter in a year? And I think the older I get, the better I get at this, because I don't know how many years I have left. I don't. And nobody else knows how many years or months or weeks or days they have left. And I get a lot more conscious about what I want these days, weeks, years left to look like and feel like. And so if it's not something that is going to matter in a year, I won't give it much energy at all.
That's smart. That's very, very good advice. Because we can all get stuck sometimes. Now, I know in your book you talk about different modalities, like you mentioned EMDR. You also mentioned tapping, and I'm a big fan of EFT. I've been using it for for 15 years in my practice, and I use it on our group coaching calls. And I've had tremendous breakthroughs personally with tapping, and helped me a lot in my healing journeys. So, give me your perception about what EFT and tapping is all about.
Well, I mean, you're tapping on energetic meridians, and there are many, many cultures of the earth that know more about how energies move through the body than we do. Western medicine and Western thinking is having to catch up to some of the Eastern schools of thought. And so where the chi runs, or whatever you want to call it, we're just depending on which cultures, systems we're talking about, is we're just moving energy through. It's fairly simple. We don't want stuck energies. Stuck energies are cancer. Stuck energies are living in that on that replay loop with those negatives running through our head, whether the negatives were our childhood of abuse. I think you and I both come from a lot of trauma in our early life, and it's the good thing and the bad thing. It's the bad thing because we had a lot to process there. It's the good thing in that to get to a place where we love life and we love others, other humans and other animals, we've had to do a lot of developing of that consciousness and a lot of letting go of negatives.
A lot of healing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so EFT, in your opinion, how does that improve or raise somebody's frequency?
Yeah, so it's just facilitating movement of energies so that we don't get stuck in the places that we don't want to be. And so I'm not a huge tapper myself. I do other things just because there are things that work for me that I can. I'm a very words-oriented person. So I go through a series of questions that I ask myself that allow me to realize if I'm in traffic and someone flips me off or negative thing happens. I can ask myself the questions now so quickly that I don't actually ask myself the question. I can kind of go from this state that I'm in to the Zen state without actually having to take all the steps, just because I've done it so much. But many people find tapping very useful. And I do use tapping when my other sort of first lines of defense don't work. But some people, it's their first line of defense, and that's great. And so they're just starting on the meridians and using the mantra. And so you're literally using words, thoughts, and physical movement to flush energies through is the most simple way to put that. Why tapping works.
Yeah, that's great. Now, what are your questions? Do you mind sharing them?
Oh, yeah. So I actually wrote them all out here in the book. This is a little picture of the book because I know you lent yours out, but there it is. So I we could use the example of somebody flipping you off in traffic. And a lot of times we have some emotions arise, and because we don't, metabolize it, reframe and release it, we have to start with metabolizing. We have to understand what it is. And that's what question 1 does, is why am I feeling? And then what goes in that blank? What are you feeling? What is the word that you would apply to that specific feeling that is uncomfortable for you, that you would like to see it move on its way as soon as possible? Why am I feeling angry or uncomfortable, frustrated, anxious, discouraged? What is really bothering me beneath the surface emotion? And as a psychotherapist, a lot of what we do is we help people realize that anger, for instance, is a false emotion. It's a surface emotion. It's a socially acceptable emotion, but there's always something else. There's always something underneath the anger. We show the anger, but what's really going on underneath is usually not feeling valued, feeling belittled, having hurt feelings, things like that. So the first thing you do is get clear on what's bothering you here. What is the emotion? What is actually going on? And then now that I know what's really eating at me, what actions could I take to solve it? And when you are in fear mode, we call it lizard brain, right? Because we go into that part of the brain where we function very much like a lizard, and it's not where we are our very best. We narrow down and we only see two options. And when you start to think in binaries, I can either do this or I can do that, just know that you've gone into lizard brain. You've gone into the limbic brain where all you know is, am I safe or am I not safe? So if you can push that open, okay, instead of it being this wide, push it open to 180 degrees, then you're going to be able to ask yourself, what are all of my different options here? What could I do? Usually when someone flips off another person who is not living in very high vibration states of consciousness, what are they going to do? Someone who has flipped off in traffic, what do you think the most common thing is that they do?
Flip back.
Probably flip somebody off back. And that's your lizard brain informing you what to do. But you're better than that, right? You're just better than that. And then you've allowed this person you don't even know in another car who's having an anger management problem to dictate your vibration. Yeah. And this is where it gets really exciting, is when you can completely avoid the negatives of that situation. And hopefully a couple minutes later, you are congratulating yourself. Like, I literally didn't feel anger. I've gotten to the point where something like that happens and I'm either laughing or wishing them well, right, or whatever. So, my example is, now that I know what's really eating at me, what actions could I take to solve it? What if one of your actions you could take is to smile and wave? Okay, how opposite is that of than what lizard brain would dictate you to do, which is either swerve your car, creating a safety problem, or react in anger and flip the other person off. Number 3, if I felt and did the opposite of what my first instinct was, or did something very different, what would I do? You see how we're opening up, we're getting out of lizard brain, and we are opening up our options. Number 4, how would it feel to do that? And which one will I choose? So maybe you gave yourself the option. I mean, you have the option of flipping off the other person, and you can do that. And maybe it would feel righteous for a minute. But mostly, if you're clear with yourself and you know that your goal in life is to live in the high vibrations and to be happy and help other people be happy, if you're clear on that's what your goal is, once you understand energies and once you understand that you are all energies all the time, then you might ask yourself, well, what will it feel like to smile and wave at the person who just cursed you, right? And then the last one is, how did that feel? What are the consequences there? And did it raise or lower my vibrational quotient? The book is about how to identify your own vibrational quotient. There's a quiz. And then how to raise it. So it's giving you more options, and it's helping you think outside of lizard brain and more in the realm of what makes humans, which is we can make our decisions based on long-term consequences and our basic love and compassion for ourselves and others.
Yeah, it's all about choice. We can choose to be bitter or better. We can choose to be, happy. That's even in the face of a diagnosis with cancer. There's always that choice of how we look at it. So if people want to learn more about, well, I know you have a quiz. You have a vibe quiz. Do they go to Green Smoothie Girl /
Good question. I do not remember that URL. We have a quiz. I know we have a quiz about in the book. I don't think it's online, but lets you fill out a lot of different factors that sort of give us a sense of where your vibrational quotient is. Is it high? Is it low? Is it somewhere in between? And which factors are you weaker in and stronger in? That's in the book. We do have a quiz, and you'd have to ask for it on the Green Smoothie Girl page on Facebook, because I don't know the URL off the top of my head. We have a quiz to help you identify if you're an empath, an intuitive, an energy healer, and Dr. Elaine Aron did some great work helping identify what percentage of the population is a highly sensitive person. These are people who are just very energetically sensitive. And I like to give people this quiz because I like them to understand that a lot of folks have been criticized for, especially here in the U.S., where we're not supposed to bleed out, we're not supposed to show our softer emotions on the surface very much, help you understand that these are energetic gifts. then you can do a lot with them, and that there are a lot of energies that you can read and learn to be very sophisticated at sensing in your relationships with people that'll serve you well, that'll serve your relationships well, that'll serve your career well. And so I like people to figure out if they are a highly sensitive person, an empath, an intuitive, an energy healer, because they can do great work in the world once they understand those gifts and learn how to use them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I find that I read a book on empaths, and it's interesting because I find that a lot of women with breast cancer are empaths. You know, they take on a lot of other people's energies. They want to help everybody. They put themselves last on the list. So very interesting that you have that in that list here as well.
Yeah, and that's not bad. We don't want, women are, naturally nurturing. However, we need to sometimes work on our ability to make ourselves a priority. And there's a lot of people out there talking about that. I'm by no means the only one who's saying, hey, ladies, we need this self-care. We need to put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, or we really don't even serve very well.
Right. Very good. So if people want to learn more about you and your book, where do they go?
There's greensmoothiegirl.com. There's just literally millions and millions of words that we've been on the internet since there wasn't a word for blogging yet.
Right.
And Green Smoothie Girl on Facebook. And of course, the book that you are talking about today is
Vibe. Yeah.
Anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, great book. I really enjoyed it. And thank you so much, Robyn, for your time and for sharing your expertise on energy and frequencies, because I'm definitely right there with you when it comes to healing energies in our bodies. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.